Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Amit Lalwani, and I'm the SVP of Global Business Development at DealCloud. Today, we will provide an overview of the key operations that financial services firms can streamline with the support of purpose-built technologies and expert implementation. Before we begin, we want to take a moment to review a few housekeeping items. Just like a lot of you, we at DealCloud and Lionpoint are currently working from home. There may be an occasional background noise, and we hope you can excuse us. As Zoom experiences high usage volume, we may experience connectivity issues or slowness. While unlikely, it's worth mentioning that if we or you have any issues, this session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to you all after the webinar is finished. Lastly, participants can submit questions during the webinar via the Q&A function, and we will start answering the questions at the end of the presentation. With that said, let's get started. Quick introductions. My name is Amit Lalwani. I'm the SVP for Global Business Development at DealCloud. My experience spans over the past 18 years working in the fintech space in varying roles focused on product development, account management, and sales, engaging with the world's largest investment banking and private capital market firms. And I'm very excited to be part of this webinar today and present to you based on some of our experiences. I'll hand it over to Jonathan to quickly introduce himself as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Broch. I'm a director with Lionpoint Group, where I advise alternative investments firms on technology strategy, selection, and implementation. I also have worked in the financial services technology space for just about 18 years and previously led strategy and product development for one of the industry's leading fund accounting and reporting solutions.
Thank you, Jonathan. So let's get started. A little bit of background about DealCloud for those who may not know. So we go to the market under the CRM umbrella, as it's easy for most folks to understand, but we are way beyond that. We have made deal and relationship management the centerpiece of our platform. And that's what differentiates us from the traditional and generic CRM providers. We've built technology specifically to address the way a deal develops in the private capital market. The capability that you see on the screen today are core to our platform, and that is used by 30,000 deal professionals globally. We are the market leader in this space, serving more than 850 clients of varying sizes and in multiple geographies. And we are excited to share some of our learnings and best practices with you today. Jonathan, something about Lionpoint?
Thanks, Amit. So Lionpoint is a global management consulting firm serving the alternative investments industry in the areas of technology, strategy, and operations. Today, we have just shy of 100 consultants with expertise across more than 20 technology solutions, and we serve over 125 clients. Our work runs the gamut from advisory work around strategy, technology, and operational transformation, down to hands-on implementation services and ongoing platform management, as we really look to bridge the gap between what our clients need and the talent and capacity that they have available within their organizations to execute on technology transformation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan. So let's get into it. Let's talk about today's goal. Today's focus is to showcase how technology transformation impacts firm-wide operations, specifically for the financial services firms. The first point here is very common. We've heard this from our clients a lot. And we'll talk a little bit about how technology transformation helps you better address your LP and client expectations. And across DealCloud and Lionpoint, we've got experience working with hundreds of clients. And today we'll share some of the insights from our global client base. So to begin with, what are the key trends that we see in the market today that are driving financial firms to look at technology transformation? The first one is pretty common, but it's an important one. Reliance on relationships. Relationships have always been a differentiator when it comes to having the edge over your competition. But thinking that you have a solid relationship versus leveraging data to provide evidence of the depth of your relationship is the key differentiator. We're seeing that the more successful firms are not leaving anything to chance and are getting better tech enabled to bring the entire firm's capabilities to their clients. The second thing that we observe is competition and the dry powder which is mounting. Too much dry powder on the sidelines is not news anymore. It's a trend that has persisted for a while, but what it translates into is more competition to get the right deals that meet your and your LP's strategic parameters. And the last piece is you won the deal, and now what? The deal management component of your business has never been tougher. With management teams getting more savvy and LPs asking for details with increasing frequency, your only choice is to leverage technology that was purpose-built for you, because Excel and generic tools just cannot get the job done. I'll hand it over to Jonathan to talk about what Lionpoint is seeing in the market.
Thanks, Amit. I'd say we're certainly seeing these same trends across firms that engage Lionpoint to guide them through their technology transformation. So that certainly strikes a chord. On the topic of relationships, I'd say there's just a clear understanding that relationships are the underpinning of the entire business. And I'd say an acknowledgement that key relationships are just too complex and there's too many touch points to be managed in Excel or in the heads of just a few individuals. So you never get a clear or complete view that way. And inevitably, the firm misses out on opportunities that could have otherwise been apparent with the right technology. On the topic of deal management, I'll share part of a conversation that we had recently with one of our clients, just over the course of this past week. And the gist of it is that this unusual and this trying time that we're going through, it's really, hopefully, a once in a lifetime situation. It lasts 6 months, likely never happens again in our lifetimes. And the question our client posed is, how can they take this pause in activity to think about how to better evaluate deals and make decisions faster? And this wasn't just a one-off conversation. I'd say we're seeing across our client base an appetite to tackle strategic initiatives and really use this time as an opportunity to take a leap forward as a firm.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Over the next couple of slides, Jonathan will share how financial services firms should be thinking about their technology transformation.
Great. So as we talk about technology transformation today, we're going to lay out for you a 3-step process that entails establishing a foundational layer of technologies, optimizing the technology architecture, and addressing functional gaps. And we're going to go into detail about what each of these 3 steps mean. But we found this approach to be very successful, especially when there's 10 projects that need to get done and you need to figure out where to start. But before we dive into step 1, I'd like to just point out that whenever an organization is going through transformation, it's so critical to consider the people and the process part of the equation as well. There's just a tendency to overlook that. So I do want to take a moment to call that out. But for our purposes today, we're going to focus on really the technological component of transformation and talk a bit about that. So this first step in technology transformation is what we refer to as establishing the foundational layer of technologies. And when you look at the roadmap and all the things that you want to get done as an organization, several initiatives will inevitably rise to the top, and it's going to become apparent that these are the foundational building blocks that everything else will attach to. And these are the mission critical systems of the organization that support the key business functions of raising capital, deploying capital, reporting to investors. And CRM is right at the heart of this first step because it touches every single one of these mission critical functions. Other technologies that are typically part of step 1 are fund accounting, portfolio monitoring, investor portal, and document management, really thinking about holistically, how is the organization going to manage files and documents across different systems. It's important that the technologies that are selected here as part of step 1 have an open architecture that allows for integration and automation down the road, and some of the things we're going to talk about in step 2. But as you come to the end of step one, have these foundational technologies in place, not only do you want to see these systems implemented, but it's also critical that there's an overarching data management strategy in place and that processes are developed around how the systems are used so that your firm can really make that next, make that leap to step two.
That's right, Jonathan. And this is such a critical piece. I'd like to use an analogy here to stress a point here. So if you've ever seen a house being built from the ground up, the first thing that needs to happen is laying down the foundation, which needs to be carefully planned to support the house and all the additions that will be built on top of it. In our experience, the CRM component, the fund accounting and portfolio monitoring is where you start before you start adding any bells and whistles to your technology platform. So that's a critical point.
So now here in step two is where it really gets exciting. This is what everyone wants to do, right? Integration, automation of calculations, things like that. And that is where it gets exciting. So with the right foundation in place, there's now that clear path to connecting technologies together and putting automation in place that allows the organization to reduce operational risks and start to really efficiently scale. In this phase, firms are leveraging reporting and analytics across platforms. They're implementing waterfall management fee, GP carry models, connecting valuation models, and automating many other time-intensive tasks, which in the end not only save time, but also reduce risk tremendously and add a lot of business value. But I want to underscore that getting step right is so important and is really what unlocks the opportunities that we start to talk about here in step two. It's that solid foundation that's put in place, coupled with the data management strategy and well-defined processes that now enable automation. I'd say this is classic walk before you run. And in a few minutes, we're going to talk more about CRM and how CRM as a foundational technology unlocks specific opportunities for your organization.
Yeah, Jonathan, and the thing that comes to mind is about 10 years ago, this was all aspirational, right? Analytics and integrations and modeling. But today, these goals are being realized, and there is an established method for how to get there. The important thing to focus on in this step is the interoperability of the products that you pick. Deploying systems that communicate seamlessly and with native API-based integration makes the deployment easy in the first instance, but also maintenance becomes a lot more efficient.
That's right, Amit. And now when we talk about step three, I'd say it's really appropriate to think about this as a parallel track with steps 1 and 2. So step 3 are isolated department-specific initiatives that can be prioritized and tackled in tandem with the broader technology vision. Some examples of this include corporate accounting, compliance, expense tracking and allocations. These are all examples of department-specific initiatives that can generally run on a parallel path because the touch points to the broader ecosystem are relatively light. This often winds up following steps 1 and 2, but it doesn't have to. And the key here is to carve out those technologies that are department-specific and really allow them to run on their own timetable.
Yeah, Jonathan, the one thing I'd like to also stress here is folks at Lionpoint and even the DealCloud implementation team, this is what we do when we are trying to get a holistic picture of the client. In the beginning, when they talk about foundational technologies and a bunch of other things, we would try and uncover what is their nirvana, and all of these things come up. And this helps design the products and the platform from the ground up, keeping the end goal in mind. So this is also a pretty important step to address the functional gaps, and sooner rather than later. Over the next couple of slides, what we'd like to talk about is, as you are going through the process of identifying your initiatives and the 3 steps that Jonathan talked about, there are a number of business outcomes that you should be considering, but we identified these 3 as amongst the important ones. So the first one being standards and processes. When you're looking at technological transformation, this is a great opportunity if you're a firm that has been in business for a long period of time, operating multiple regions and multiple strategies, multiple funds. it is always important for you to ask, is status quo the right thing to do? It's a good point where you reassess existing processes and or establish new processes. And the reason you do that is because once you have a good handle on your standards, on your processes, you can then start considering automations. And what automations really does is helps you efficiently maintain the quality of the data entering your system. Because ultimately, with the right standards and processes and leveraging automations, it's going to create consistency, which is what you're after. The second outcome to be thinking about is streamlining your existing processes or existing costs over multiple systems. And I like to break this down into two separate costs. One is a hard cost, which is the actual dollars that you spend on technology. But the other one is a soft cost, and I'll touch that in a second. With regards to the hard cost, when picking a solution for your initiatives, it will help if you select a singular platform that can address all of your front-end needs so that your users don't have to enter the same information in multiple systems. What that does is drive adoption, and it also shortens the time required to derive in the return on your investment. And finally, what it does, it helps reduce redundancies. And the soft dollar piece that I talked about is just take into consideration if you have a platform that people can go in and take a look at client interactions, it'll save the amount of email traffic. One client that we worked with who deployed DealCloud told us annually they saved about 50,000 emails going back and forth, asking simple things about where are we on a certain deal, who's working on this piece of the deal. But if you have one front end that tracks all of that for you, it saves tremendous amount of people time as well. And finally, this is what most of our clients want to get to, the single source of truth, right? Wouldn't it be nice if everyone in your firm would have just one place to look up all activities that took place at your firm with regards to a specific LP over a specific period of time? And then giving the folks in your firm a single reference point also helps them see the value of the collective insights. Over the next 3 slides, what we will do is talk about some tactical examples that showcase how a thoughtful technology transformation process impacts certain operational tasks. The first thing that we looked at was deal pipeline. And this is very crucial because a number of our clients, the first thing they talk about when they talk to us about a singular platform is deal pipeline, right? And when financial services firms are going out there to search for, products, the deal pipeline always comes up. So let's look at it from the lens of those 3 outcomes: standardizing, streamlining, a single source of truth. So for your deal pipeline, we appreciate that there's nuances specific to a region, specific to a strategy. And it's important for the entire team within that strategy to communicate using the same standard. As a firm that has multiple strategies, you may have a credit strategy, you may have a secondary strategy, you may have a buyout strategy. And each one of these strategies may have their own nuances, but you do want to look at creating standards that will reduce ambiguity and save the unnecessary back and forth. And you should be thinking about a platform that allows you that flexibility to be able to create standards while maintaining various different products that are being able to input there. Secondly, streamlining. Once you've identified the standards and you've streamlined your workflow, every team member should know their role on the deal so that they can focus on their specific tasks at the appropriate time. And ultimately what that helps with is increasing the transparency and accountability within the firm during the deal lifecycle. Jonathan, anything to add here?
Sure, Amit. I think about some of the work our organizations do together and how when implementing a CRM, it's really easy to just take an Excel pipeline, clean it up one time, slap it into a CRM, but wow, it's such a missed opportunity. And we never want to see that happen, because as deal pipelines are being migrated into a CRM, the real questions to ask are, why is this data stale? Why is the deal in the pipeline for 4 months without a decision? Do we know who our best deal sources are, or who our potential deal sources might be? And are we aligning our time in a way that reflects the importance of these relationships? How do we make sure key interactions and conversations are centrally available, right? So everyone who needs to be in the know is. It's, you know, as firms move into a system like DealCloud, it's so critical that the right rhythms and cadences and processes are defined so that the technology can deliver the maximum business value. You never want to take a system as powerful as DealCloud and dumb it down to just replicating a spreadsheet. That's just such a missed opportunity.
That's right. Thank you, Jonathan. The second piece that we were focused on when thinking about examples that our clients focus mostly of their time on is talent management. And this is where having a standard to track all the executives in your network is going to be tremendously valuable, because these executives in your network are also your assets. And if you have a standard way to capture not only their experience, but board affiliations and qualifications, and in some cases, aptitude tests that you might give them, this helps you identify the right executive to tap when you want them to manage your next asset. Streamlining that exact same talent management process is going to make sure that there is never a break in your process that has been put in place, ensuring that you can always look at a system, quickly identify who is the right candidate, and you are then able to place that talent at the right company. And finally, the single source of truth enables the right people with the right permissions and access rights on your team to be in the know on all interactions with top executives in a specific region, in an industry, so that they can have this sort of information on their fingertips. Jonathan, what has been your experience on this one?
Yeah, we have a real appetite from our clients around talent management, especially recently as it relates to filling key positions at portfolio companies. And I think back, you know, several years ago, this wasn't such a common ask, but it certainly is nowadays. And being thoughtful about how candidate information is handled from executive searches, how it's managed and it's tagged over time, that's what enables firms to build up that robust repository of talent. So someone might not be a perfect fit, for example, for a CEO role at a given company, but they might be an awesome fit for a COO role down the line. And so being able to capture this data, tag it properly, and maintain it has a lot of value and can lead to faster placements and have a real impact on the bottom line.
That is so true, Jonathan. Thank you. And finally, this example probably is near and dear to a lot of people that are on the webinar today: due diligence. And I'm sure each one of you appreciates how much time goes into this. And of all the deals that you do some due diligence on, each one of you has a certain percentage that come through. And we all can agree it's not a very high percentage, because these deals have to meet your stringent strategy criteria, your parameters, and so many things have to align. But the things that you could do in this due diligence process is, again, looking at the same workflow through the same lens of standardizing and streamlining and single source of truth, is if you create a standard process that not only saves you time, but also presents you in a very professional manner to your clients and targets. And this can certainly be used as a competitive advantage when presenting your processes to your LPs. From a streamlining perspective, predefined workflows along with alerts and notifications truly bring out the power of the DealCloud platform, where the right team members can be notified of the next steps at the precise time in the due diligence phase, thereby putting you in a position to win if there is a competitive bid process. And then finally, this is a very important piece, which is, like I said earlier, not all due diligence may end up in a deal, right? But the intelligence that you gather during the course of that due diligence should be easily available for you to leverage when you're working on a similar situation or a transaction in the future, so that you're not starting from zero. And Jonathan?
Yeah, I'd say on the relevant side, just because it's so complex and there's such a time sensitivity and there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen, we see clients leveraging technology to stay on top of deadlines, make sure they've got full transparency into where deals stand, what needs to happen to move them forward. I think this really comes back and underscores two things, really two key takeaways here. And first is to think about the process in tandem with the technology, because you have to define what you want the technology to do. And the second is you need to select technologies that are flexible enough to adapt to the way you envision your teams working, and not the other way around and try to force business process into a technology box, right?
Yeah, that is so true. I think next up, what we'd like to do is share with you a specific client engagement that both DealCloud and Lionpoint worked on. And I'll hand it over to Jonathan to provide a little more color on this specific Rourke Capital case study.
Thanks, Amit. Rourke Capital, amazing firm that's really going about technology transformation the right way. A little bit of background on Rourke. So Rourke invests in consumer services and business services companies that have franchise and multi-unit business models. And it's invested in a number of very recognizable household name brands. So as part of Rourke's technology transformation, DealCloud was selected as the firm-wide CRM. And Rourke went into this decision really looking at how to maximize the value of its investment in CRM and implemented it thinking holistically about people and relationships. The product's being used across a variety of functions for fundraising and IR, deal pipeline management, talent management, even vendor management. And it's really one of the foundational centerpieces of Rourke's technology architecture. If you recall back to what we spoke about earlier in the webinar about step one and laying the foundation and then moving into step two, now as we're segueing into step two, we're looking at how DealCloud can be interfaced with fund accounting, and portfolio monitoring, and investor portal technologies. So you really have one ecosystem where different systems are talking to each other, and there's a lot of coordination and business value in that. The model that we found to be very successful in working together is DealCloud is clearly the expert in its technology and delivers on the core aspects of the system itself, things like data migration, design, report development, training, the items that you see listed here. At Lionpoint, helping firms with defining their overall roadmap and managing that program, implementing a data strategy that spans across systems, and lastly, helps firms with implementing the processes that, again, enable firms to maximize the investment that they're making in technology and not just implement technology for the sake of it.
Hi, Jonathan. Rourke is an amazing firm. We've had very good experience working with them. And one of the things that came to mind when we talked to Rourke was, just like a lot of our existing clients, they came from no real platform, right? There was a lot of Excel, there was some internal stuff, but no true platform to bring the entire firm together. Apart from that, now they are actually able to provide a single pane of glass to view all client interactions. And they are running all of their business development activities through DealCloud. And one of the things that was not on the radar during phase one was talent management. So to your point, if you go back to the 3 steps, the foundational technology, and then the additional pieces, and then ultimately, the functional gaps, this is a clear example of picking a flexible technology where you put in the foundation and then you can build on it. And as of today, the entire talent management and recruiting activities are completely managed out of DealCloud. So we're very happy and proud to have that relationship with Rourke. Just moving on, Jonathan, let's talk a little bit about what's on the frontier. What's Lionpoint experiencing as you speak to your clients? What are you hearing from the market? What is the next frontier for your clients?
Yeah, and I guess I'd say to everyone on the webinar today, we realize everyone's in a different place with regards to where they are in their technology journey. Some are thinking about phase one and still working in Excel largely today. Some are in the middle of phase 2. So everyone's going to be in a different place, and we certainly recognize that. I think I'd like to just highlight is how much technology has advanced over the last several years, and the types of things that firms are not just thinking about doing, but successfully executing on, where there's a proven model in place for adoption. A couple areas where we've seen significant ramp up in adoption is around technologies for portfolio monitoring, and also for planning, forecasting, automation of fee calculations and modeling. Those are two big areas where we're doing a lot of work with our clients. At Lionpoint, the common theme that we see is just to continue to advise and coach our clients through their technology transformation, wherever they may be along that journey, and to really ensure that firms are able to maximize the value of the investment that they're making in technology.
Thank you for your comments there, Jonathan. From my perspective, I mean, there's a number of these things that we talk to our clients all the time, and so much so, specifically on the marketing piece, I'd like to highlight, we received a lot of feedback from our clients where they were using multiple different third-party providers for the marketing. But just like we mentioned earlier, there's generic CRM, and then there's DealCloud that is purpose-built. So we took the opportunity to invest in that. And we now have a purpose-built marketing component that comes native inside of DealCloud, which not only is streamlined and it's standardized, but it also serves as a single source of truth where at any given point in time, you as a GP can take a look at any sort of digital interaction that your LPs or any other parties that you do business with has had with any of your digital marketing. And we're pretty proud of being able to build that, and we've got a number of clients using it. And in some markets, we just feel it's better to partner. We've had partnerships with PitchBook and Preqin, and we've got another half a dozen partnerships with data providers that our clients are driving. So we've been open to this whole concept of what's on the frontier, and a lot of these things are also driving our roadmap. So we're fortunate to be partnering with, like I said, 800 plus clients out there who are guiding us and providing feedback. And I completely agree with you. Everything that's on this screen has been talked about in some shape or form, and the client side various points in their journey. So with that, we're at the end of our presentation. I would encourage, if anybody has questions, please feel free to use our Q&A function on the Zoom right now, and we'll be more than happy to answer some questions. I do see one question that has come through. Let's see, my firm spends so much time each month trying to summarize our fee collection and pipeline, but there's people I work with who like the way we manually do it. How do we get our teams to understand that there's a better way? That's a good question. Jonathan, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I think about something we used to refer to as the WIFM, what's in it for me? And it's really important. Just touched upon this earlier in the presentation, but we didn't spend too much time on it, talking about the importance of people and process as part of this, and being able to articulate the end state for users and how the technology will impact them and what that value is going to be for them. If it's going to be getting them home earlier in the day, if it's going to be that they're able to get more done as a result of it, or shift the way they use their time from managing data to doing things that are more strategic. And that's different for everyone. But I think there's conversations there in this scenario to be had around really what's the value for the different users in the organization that are impacted by the process, and how can technology really create a win for everybody? Because it absolutely can, but it's important to have those conversations to uncover that before trying to leverage the technology itself.
Right. Jonathan, I'd like to answer that question in two parts. I mean, the first one is very simple, which is have an open mind and bring those folks who like the manual stuff to the table, and let us show them what we have done for some of your peers, right? Because seeing is believing, and they should at least be exposed to what else can be done. And the second piece is talk to some of your peers who have already done it, because that also is an important piece for you to realize that, talk to some of your peers who had the same challenge as you and now have gone past it. They've crossed the hurdle and now they're benefiting from it. So those will be my two-part response to that. There's another question here, just checking, was the talent management function part of DealCloud? Absolutely. So what you saw in the previous screens is something that is part of our blueprint. I would say more than half of our clients actually use it. And I would encourage you, if you're a DealCloud client, to talk to your account management to walk you through the various different ways we've actually helped clients to tackle the talent management function. So answer is yes, we absolutely have that as part of the standard DealCloud functionality. Let's see. Our firm has purchased some technologies to support operations, but haven't had much success in adoption. Do Lionpoint, DealCloud help with encouraging user adoption? We've tried and failed. I could take this one, Jonathan. So the one thing that we have done that has helped adoption is after the implementation, there is 3 other teams that take part in the whole client engagement, right? Number one is our account management team. And the way our account management team is structured is they are incentivized to drive adoption. So you may or may not have seen, but please reach out to your account management team. They have a 30, 60, 90-day adoption plan. And what they do is they sit with you and identify, here are the top winning criteria for us. X number of people should log in. X number of people must run at least these reports every Friday or Monday. And what they do is they track the usage without being too intrusive, but they would come to you on a bi-weekly basis or a monthly basis and show you who's using it and how. And then we have a training team that follows up with that, where we can actually, not in these days, but we used to, actually come on site, have a working group session with the team members that may not be using the product to the extent that they should be using. So we've done things like that, and we'll be more than happy to come and help you with that. I would say just get in touch with your account management team so that they can come up with a plan for you. Let's see, there's a couple more here. How do your clients use the due diligence functions during fundraising? And what are common pitfalls in setting this up? Jonathan, do you have a view on this?
Sure. I think if maybe using DealCloud as a CRM now and looking to extend it to the fundraising and IR side, right? There's certainly a lot of organizations that have done it very successfully, and thinking through and having those blueprint and design discussions around the different stages of the fundraising process and really laying out what the workflow is going to look like and how that's going to be implemented in the system are important. I think what I encourage to also think about it is, what happens after the completion of fundraising and investor onboarding checklists, and you're really going through and designing what that entire process from soup to nuts looks like, and then backing into how the system needs to be structured in order to support it. But we certainly encourage firms to centralize, have a single CRM that centralizes not just deal pipeline but also fundraising and IR, because there is overlap across those functions, and it's important to get those teams on the same page. Those are just some initial thoughts. Would have so many specific questions there, but those are some initial takes.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I would say the common pitfall that we see is if it's not done wholeheartedly. So if you're agreeing with your teams and with our implementation teams to build the functionality during fundraising, which might be answer specific questions, follow certain workflows, you need commitment from the entire team to follow the process. And one way to do that is to make certain things just mandatory. Once you do that, it's habit, and it just becomes second nature. And that's how you can get over some of the common pitfalls. Here's another good one. how can we get resources, ideas for how to implement planning and forecasting into our systems? Sounds like a great idea. Would be great to show how the clients are doing this. Yeah, absolutely. So we have, our account management team is the tip of the spear for us. They are working with our clients all day long and putting in the hours and resources to help them build out their planning, forecasting. And within reason, what I would say is talk to your account management team so that they can first understand what is it that you're trying to accomplish. Because I don't think there is a one size fits all, but I would encourage having the conversation, providing as much information to your account management team so that they can bring to you a couple of options. Like we said, we've got best practices that are in our demo sites, in our blueprint sites, but I think it's very crucial for our account management team to learn about your business first, learn what you're trying to accomplish, what you're aspiring to do, and then let them bring those things to you. Is DealCloud further enhancing investor reporting functions, monthly, quarterly, annually? Yeah, absolutely. So with regards to reporting, some folks may or may not be aware, we've got this reporting and notification engine where you have the ability to program yourself, and you don't even need our help. You can program yourself what kind of reports do you want the system to run automatically on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. And you can set up a group that receives all of those reports as a report pack. Some of you may have seen our tear sheets. It's similar to that same concept where if you have to send a monthly report to a specific investor on a Monday, you can have that report sent to you on a Friday evening. You can take a look at it, make sure everything looks fine. And once you're satisfied with the report, then it can automatically just go out to your clients on a Monday, or you can log into the system, make changes that you need. And then since it's a live system, when the reports go out on Monday, it'll have all the information that you wanted. Here's another interesting one. Really appreciate people sending in the questions. We have a foundational technology platform, CRM, but have many functional gaps. How do we prioritize which one of those functional gaps to tackle first? If it's IR, portfolio monitoring, etc. Jonathan, I think this is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Great question. So I think when you're looking at, really this is talking about how to develop a roadmap. And I think that the first thing that's in place before you start addressing specific gaps is to make sure that there's an overarching strategy in place, that there's also buy-in across the firm, and that there's a clear vision about how you're going to get from A to Z and what Z looks like. What is that end state that you're really moving towards? And with that in place, right, then typically you're prioritizing based on business value. As you look across different gaps, you want to make sure that you're working on the things that are going to yield the most business value. Then you also have a series of gates and checkpoints to make sure before you start an initiative and start kind of gap filling to make sure you have the appropriate resources in place, that there are the internal resources necessary to execute on the project, that there's the sponsor in place, and you don't necessarily start a project or start trying to fill the gaps without making sure you have everything in place that's going to enable you to be successful. So those are some initial thoughts there, but every situation is a little bit different in terms of how things get sequenced.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's a great answer. There's another interesting one here. Do you have a recommended IT infrastructure when linking DealCloud with other applications, which you can share with listeners and or clients when considering a DealCloud implementation? So this may sound, pretty simple, but we've deployed DealCloud in various different IT architectures. I mean, as the word gives itself away, it's a cloud-based SaaS platform, but we've seen clients where they've, attached using our APIs up to 12 different systems that are sending information into DealCloud, And then DealCloud is one of the various systems that they use from a reporting purpose. So then there is the same API that sends DealCloud related information out into a data lake, where they can then run very complex reports that commingle DealCloud data with their other internal data, and they have a centralized reporting mechanism. So I would say there's no hard and fast IT architecture requirement. We've developed and designed DealCloud in such a way that it can sit in a standalone environment, but it probably is better if it's part of an ecosystem where there are capabilities with other systems to use the web-based APIs to send information back and forth. Here's another one. We currently use DealCloud for our storage, but want to centralize our workflow. Do you have the ability to edit Excel and Word documents in real time in Lionpoint while housing those documents within DealCloud? Jonathan, I don't know if you've had experience users editing documents in Lionpoint. Maybe you want to share some more background on Lionpoint itself and how it, interacts with DealCloud, because I know that's Lionpoint itself is not a product.
Sure, right. So we're helping is from a consulting perspective and guiding firms through through strategy, putting data management strategy in place, and making sure that there's firms are able to successfully execute on their technology roadmap. I think what this question is really getting at is document management strategy, right? And we have had a lot of conversations with clients around that, because you certainly have the ability to store native documents in DealCloud, and there are other products that do, like bots and SharePoint, which are other options that an organization has. But the key thing here is when it comes to files and document management strategy, you have a lot of options, and users have a lot of choices in their daily lives about where they're going to put files. And so this underscores the need to think holistically about the strategy for how you're going to manage files and documents, and make sure it's just not shooting from the hip and each user doing their own thing, because that's never going to yield to the end state that the organization is looking for. So just important to have that strategy in place when it comes to document management, as well as other functions we've talked about.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. I think we have time to take one more. And this one says, this demo site and best practices you reference, can you share a link to it? Absolutely. If you're currently working with your account management representative, just send them an email or call them. They'll be more than happy to share the link and even walk you through it. Our best practice sites are the ones that we show in most of our demos. And as you can imagine, we're constantly updating it, with the new releases that we come out with every quarter, as well as nuanced use cases that we might be using for certain prospects or existing clients, maintaining confidentiality. So simple answer, please reach out to your account management representative, and they'll be more than happy to share the link with you. I think with that, we are at the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our team, and we'd love to continue having a discussion with you and your firm. Jonathan, any parting words?
No, I'd just like to thank all of the webinar attendees for their engagement. Excellent questions. I know there were more questions we were able to get to, so we'll be certain to follow up on those. But thank you, everyone.
Awesome. And just as a final reminder, this webinar was recorded, and we will make it available on dealcloud.com shortly. Please also visit www.dealcloud.com/webinars for more information on other webinars, as well as to rewatch our past webinars as well. Thank you again for joining us today. Have a good one.